Hi, my name's Jason. I'm also known as Zorn on the Fantasy Grounds forum, and this is a tutorial on how to create an adventure module using the parse utility. For anyone watching this, I'm assuming you've already watched the parse tutorial, which will show how to use most of the tags and markups in the parse utility. The first thing I want to do is just look at the software I'm going to be using. On the left, you can use any PDF viewer you want. I like PDF Exchange Viewer because it has some nice OCR capability. It's also free. It also lets me copy and paste multiple pages at once. And then on the right, I'm using Notepad++, which is my favorite text editor. I also have Fantasy Grounds loaded into our tutorial campaign we've been using for this video series so that I can compare how the markup actually turns out in Fantasy Grounds. And I have parse ready to go, and so that we can take a look at exactly what configuration I'll be using. And then I also have, I'll be using Token Tool to make my tokens. I use GIMP to make my maps, etc. So let's go ahead and get back to our PDF and let's just dive right in. So I kicked off the Adventure Module tutorial, which is based on exporting a Fantasy Grounds campaign to create a module. I kicked that off with, you need to do your prep work first. Basically, you need all of your NPCs and images and tokens and items. You need all of that built first before you start doing your story entries. And the reason for that is that in an adventure module, you have to have a link to drag in before you close that story entry. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and open it later. In parse, this is a link. #ZL semicolon story, so it's linking to a story entry, semicolon introduction. I'm done. Link's built. I'm in Fantasy Grounds terms, that means that story entry's closed. I don't need to open it again. When I build the introduction entry, ## semicolon introduction, it automatically is going to link when it parses. So you don't have to have your endpoints built already, and that's something that's really handy. The way I use this when I'm building an adventure module in parse is I start with my story, and I'll just paste all my text in, and I go through and start putting my story text in. And as I come to encounters or parcels, I just build them. I jump out, build it real quick, go back to my story entry and keep going. When I'm finished, then I've got a list from my encounters. These are all the NPCs I need. So I go into my NPCs and I build them all. And then I also can see from my parcels, this is all the equipment and magic items I need. So I jump to equipment and magic items and build those, and then save it all and parse it, and I'm good to go. So that is one of the really nice things about parse, is you don't have to do the prep work first. Note, it's not a bad idea to do the prep work first, especially if you're building like your own adventure. I tend to build the encounters and monsters and treasure and all that stuff first, and then I go back and write a story around it. But that's because that's how I DM. I'm a lazy DM. That is a great book, by the way, The Lazy DM by Mike Shea. If you're an experienced DM, it'll change your life. Anyways, let's go ahead and start building. So when you watch the parse tutorial, I showed how to build a bunch of these things already. So you already know how to parse equipment, you already know how to parse magic items, and you already know how to parse NPCs. What we haven't covered is how to parse an encounter module, or an encounter entry, and this is it. You'll notice this little #@ semicolon, and you'll see it a lot. And the reason is that's how you identify what tab you're going to use. So this is encounters. Let me go to NPCs, okay, and we'll go to encounters, and you'll see here, Drums in the Marsh. That's coming from this line right here, okay? So it's anytime you have that # symbol, it's creating a tab. So that's good to know for story entries and anywhere else you're going to see them. So to create an encounter, it's ## semicolon, which is how to create this. You're making the shield when you do ## semicolon. Trollio Farm, you can see there's the link right there. It's CR1/2 XP100. It's 1, so it's the number, semicolon, the creature, semicolon, and if you want to include a name, you put it right here. If you want to have a different name. So it's a giant goat, but I'm actually going to call it Ripper, the giant goat. So I could put Ripper there, and in the encounter itself, instead of giant goat, it would say Ripper right here. What you need to note is if you do that, you need to have a token named Ripper, not giant goat, because it's going to try and link to whatever name you put here. But that's it. That's how you create an encounter module. That's how you create an encounter entry. Down here, 2 lizard folk, 2 lizard folk shaman, 1 lizard king. Make sure that these match exactly what your NPC entry is. Okay. So the other thing we haven't built before is a parcel. Parcels are just as easy. Let's go ahead and show items. And let's show parcels. Here it goes. And right here, you'll notice there is my parcels, 5E drums in the marsh. That's because it's getting it from the name of this module. But you have Renan Farm is right here. And you'll notice it says 10 coin, 10 gold pieces. There you go. It says coin, 22 silver pieces, coin, 52 copper pieces, item, 1 silver necklace. And there you go. And because so when I link to that item, make sure that in your equipment you have an item called silver necklace worth 20 gold. So that when I open this up, you see there's a silver necklace and it's worth 20 gold. Good to go. So that's all there is to creating a parcel. It's very straightforward. So what's left? Now that you know how to build all of your end pieces, you need to learn how to build a story entry. So there's building a story entry is really all there is to creating an adventure module with parse. You're just using parse to do what you would be doing in the campaign, and it's much faster. So let's jump over to our document so we can actually see what we've got here. I tend to paste all the text in, and that way if I have to make any corrections to the OCR, when I do Control-H to find something, I will do the space before and after the word, and then I hit Control-H, I type out what it's supposed to be, and then hit go, and I let it cascade through the entire document, and it fixes all the mistakes. So let's look at how I did this one. I started off with #@ drums in the marsh. So how does that look in here? When I go to my story entries, you'll see drums in the marsh. You'll also see part 1, part 2. Well, I guarantee you that if you scroll down, there's a #@ part 1, #@ part 2. So that's how you can specify what tab an entry is supposed to go under. But then we jump right in. So my first one is ##. Again, that's creating a shield. Drums in the marsh in parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one up so we can see what we've got going. I'm going to close the story intro. I won't even need it anymore. So you see I've got my text. This BP means bold paragraph. I just open up the 5E Parse User Guide and you can see a list of all the formatted text entries. That's what you'll need to do story entries. So BP means bold paragraph. There's also BS, bold first sentence. There's also, you could just do bold brackets to just make a word or a couple words bold. So I have BP, adventure code, DDEX 1-7. Then I have my first link, and that's what that shield is. Linking to another item is #ZL. We call them Z-links. So #ZL . The next thing that follows is where it's linking to. Is this a story entry? Is this an encounter? Is this an item? Is this an NPC or a parcel? So in this case, it's a story entry. Credits. There it is. I put 2 little dashes because I want to break out credits from the rest of it. #ZL story intro, #ZL story part 1, strange disappearances, #ZL story part 2, into the Twilight Marsh. I'm done. So at this point, it's created this, but the links are empty. Then I do ## credits. This is a new entry now, so I'm creating this at this point. In bold, I put adventure design. As you can see, I just used bold tags around what I wanted to be bold text. I'm just mirroring the document itself. And then once I got done with that, I jumped down to introduction, which if you look at the PDF, there's introduction. So I have ## introduction. I have welcome to Drums in the Marsh Expedition. You can see I did all that. And then I get my links here. And this is what I kind of like. So I have introduction here. So the next thing I jump to is adventure background. Right there. I actually skip all the section about D&D expeditions. So there's adventure background. All right. And then I have overview and adventure hooks. So let's look at my, in the adventure background entry, you'll notice this is like the high level header, and then you'll notice it starts going to the next breakdown has an underline. I have determined that that's where I'm going to put links. So if we roll down to adventure background, there's my adventure background, everything's put in. I ended with a link, ZL story, the dragon and lizard folk, and I made a new entry. How does that look in Fantasy Grounds? Well, let's close credits. Let's go to introduction, let's go to adventure background, and you can see now I've got dragon and the lizard folk here, and then that breaks down, right? Oops, looks like I forgot to take a page number out. That'll be all right. In fact, I guess we can fix it real quick. Yep, there it is. See? Dink, dink, dink. Okay, got rid of that. So next time I parse it, that'll fix that. And then the overview, bunch of information, and the adventure hooks. So let's jump down to adventure hooks. That's one of the first new entries. As you can see, I did list start, #list item, #list item, #list item, #list end. Good to go. You'll notice I also changed the optional to bold text. I'm good to go there. So I've already built everything that goes under introduction. So the next thing I linked to was part 1, strange disappearances. Here is where it's linking to. Notice it's the same name. But here I call it at part 1, and that's because I want this on the story entry. I want these to fall under part 1. So part 1, strange disappearances. So what I do on the document as I'm going through is I say part 1, strange disappearances. I know I'm going to have crossing in will be one of my breakouts. I'm going to have a short trip downstream, and I'm going to have dusk ambush. And you can see that's the 3 entries I did. Then I go back and I actually build those. So crossing in. Now crossing in is going to have, there you see, there's my header level, and then I've got something below it that's underlined. I'm going to break that out. So there's crossing in, and you can see story 01, arrival crossing at crossing in. And so then I break out that entry. This is where I get into one of my new things. I do #ZFS, which means start the formatted, the box text. #ZFT, this paragraph is going to be box text. #ZFT again, #ZFT again. When I'm all done, I do #ZFE to stop it. What's really nice is in Fantasy Grounds, this will be one block of text instead of several different box text entries. So we'll keep going down. You'll see I have role-playing Terror of the Farmhands. See how it's in that shaded text? To me, that's kind of that should be broke out. So I created another level, ZL story, role-playing Terror of the Farmhand, which gives you his information, but just in one little thing. It's just real quick. And so it breaks out. So until you get to this entry, I don't think you really need to read it. Then I get to my next breakout, which is a short trip downstream. And you can see here, there's everything for short trip downstream. I created a list, and then I had all the links for this because I have Renan Farm, I have the Aylin Farm, Trelio Farm, Gravel Bar, and moving on. There's all my links that I've put in. Then I go ahead and do those levels. And so each one, pound, semicolon, that's creating a story entry. So what's really nice about parse is that as soon as I'm done there, I can just keep going and build the next one. So I built all those, and let's go ahead and look down here. You'll notice whenever I'm under, like here, I have searching the Renan Farm. So let's back up. There's what really happened. I went ahead and just did bold paragraph for this. I didn't want to break it out into its own section. But you'll see there's a searching the Renan Farm. I put a header. The barn, I did header text. Oh, look at that. I got a messed up on my line breaks. So everything goes right there. We're all good to go. You'll notice this is bold sentence, which means it'll go till it hits a line entry or a period. So I just did a bold sentence for clues. And I do that for pretty much any place that does this. And so we keep going down. And I want to get to, here's a section for treasure, right? So let's go down to that treasure. I did a link. I called it ZL Parcel. It's going to Renan Farm. If you go to my parcels, I have one called Renan Farm. Back on the story entries, I put another semicolon and I wrote treasure. Whenever you do a link, if you do a second semicolon, this is the text it will actually display. How does that look in Fantasy Grounds? Let's come here. Strange disappearances, a short trip downstream, Renan Farm, and we scroll down. It just says treasure, okay, which is really nice. So that's pretty much what I always put. I'll put treasure. I put encounter instead of writing it all out. I do the same for maps. I'll have the actual map name until I get down, and then I just show a little piece. So let's go ahead and keep scrolling down. Let's find our first encounter. See, are we in part 2? No, we're in Dusk Ambush now. There, Dusk Ambush, and that's where we have our first encounter. So you can see here, I put ZL. I tend to put encounter at the top to warn the DM there's an encounter in here, so read ahead. ZL, encounter, Dusk Ambush, and I just wrote encounter. That's the text I wanted to show. Okay. I have another story entry to Twilight Marfolk Raiders, which you can see right here is just a breakout. I also have a ZL Nighttime Ambush, which is showing more details depending on how they do things. There's my little breakout for the Twilight Marsh Lizard Folk. There's Nighttime Ambush. So everything corresponds right over to a story entry. And that's all you're doing is building story entries. So you're done at this point. You know how to build an entire module. This is just knowing how to do formatted text. The same if you do a table. Understanding that ZL Parcel, Nighttime Ambush, Treasure. That's it. If you look in the user guide, there's a section that just shows here's how to do links and here's the different things you can link to. There you go. I hit part 2. Looks great. And as we keep going down, I want to get to my first map, which is the Island of the Lizard King. So let's go all the way down to that. There's the Ring Current Islands, Outer Islands, Bogclaw, Island of the Lizard King. And you'll notice I broke out ZL image, Island of the Lizard King.jpg, then semicolon map. And that's what I end up getting, is it just linking map, which, yeah, it's kind of a big map. Let's do that there. So that's all you need now to get my map. There's my encounter. Okay. And then there's a big ZAFS down to ZFE and ZFT for each paragraph. That gets me this box text that I can drop in. We look all the way down here. There is some LI. There's a treasure. Bogclaw's coup. This is really the whole end of this is the big finale encounter. And then we'll just keep going all the way to the bottom here, and you have Escape and Aftermath is the last part of this. So here, Ring Current Islands, Escape and Aftermath. There's my last entry. So I'm all done. So then, having done all that, I've built all my encounters, so I know I need these NPCs, so I go build them. And then I know from my parcels, I need this equipment and magic items. So I build the equipment, and I build the magic items. And I'm done. I'm ready to parse. The only thing that's left for me to do then is to go into my parse folder, and in my input folder, there's all these story entries. And I tend to just, when I first start, I should mention that I do encounters, equipment, magic items, NPCs, parcels, story. I put them all out right away, and you have your reminders of what you're going to need right here. Note that you put them under campaign instead of putting them under reference. But I know that I want encounters, I want equipment, I want images, I want to check magic items, NPCs, and parcels. I also want story entries and tokens. So once I know I've got all those, I come in here in images. There is my Island of the Lizard King JPEG. And in tokens, there's all the tokens I'm going to link to. Lizard King, Lizard Folk Shaman, Lizard Folk, Giant Toad, Giant Goat, Crocodile, and Sea. Now, I showed how to link tokens in the parse tutorial, but remember, it's always all lowercase and no spaces. And if it can't find a name, it will try the first letter. For commoners, I didn't want to try and do one token for all the commoners, so I just used a C for them. And that's it. So what I want to do now is I've got a breakout of me building this from scratch. It took me 80 minutes. I've sped it up to fit a little piece of music I like. And so you can just see start to flush building an entire module in parse, no prep work at all. I hope this is really helpful for everyone, and I hope this makes your Fantasy Grounds experience more enjoyable. Oh, God, that's so much better than the last thing I said.
Yeah.